Hey everyone, Daniel Wong from the Alternative Board here in Brisbane. If you've ever been thinking about your exit strategy, how you can make more money, more freedom, less risk, all of those amazing things, then this is a video for you. I've done several articles on recurring income streams and subscriptions, and today we have a very special treat. I am here talking with Phil from Rainmaker Sales and Revenue about why the right revenue is important when it comes to selling your business. Phil and I have met as we both have a joint interest in helping business owners really capitalize on their investment. You know, when it comes to selling a business, there are a range of factors that are important. You know, how much growth potential is there? How much control do you have over your market? What is the key man risk? Many other factors. And I tend to look at from more of a systems and risk point of view, where Phil focused primarily on the revenue and the generation of income from your existing assets. Phil, I know you've been involved in a range of sales of business, and a lot of people believe, well, if I just maximize my top line revenue, then I'll get the highest amount for my business. But my understanding is your experiences are a bit different to that.
Yeah, and thanks, Daniel, and good morning. There's what I've sort of learned over time. So primarily for businesses, firstly, to understand that they might have a goal of the business. That goal of the business might simply be to sell the business in 1 year, or it might be to sell it in 5 years, or it might be to literally grandfather it and pass it on to onto the grandkid. No doubt, when you're talking to people about exiting and helping them grow their business, as you mentioned before, a range of them will sit there and go, well, it's just about getting as much money through the business as possible. So there's a couple of, I suppose, initial things to think about. And one is, if you are looking to sell your business quickly, it's not necessarily about the volume of money, it's the style of revenue that you're actually putting through. For us, a really key component is using the resources that you actually already have and then looking to optimize those. So to provide an example, if you're looking to sell in 1 year's time your business, then you might look to all of the existing contracts you've actually got in place, if that's the style of business, is get extension on all of those contracts. That might be more valuable to extend those than to try and go out and get new contracts. If you're holding on to the business and you want to give it to your grandkids, then again, you might be looking to really set in place all of your marketing and all of your sales strategy, and your revenue strategy is about a slow build that's very, very consistent out of what you're currently doing.
Yeah, no, I think that is brilliant, really, because you're essentially getting the most amount of gain for the least amount of effort and investment and risk. Do you have, case studies that you could walk us through where you engaged with somebody and you really helped them with this delivery?
Yeah, so one particular organisation was a relatively a startup business. So they were in a way they were selling their business, and they had to go out and sell it to investors, and then they were looking at a relatively quick exit out of that. So we went through a process of really establishing how they were talking to the market, which was really important. So the words that everyone used within the organisation, who they saw themselves as a business, was start of that process. So they were recognised for something in the market. From there, we went through and we built a revenue engine. So that engine essentially allowed them to be able to use the resources they had, and each time they wanted to increase that revenue, because they could actually at the same time provide the service, because there's always that balance of, you can go out and get a lot of revenue, but if you can't provide that service to go with it, things eventually, the rails fall off it. So we built that revenue engine, which involved the marketing, involved the sales, involved their pricing, their product, and all of these different services on the way through. Essentially what they came out of that was they were able to tweak it as they can provide more service, as they release more software, they can, again, just tweak it to grow. But they also had a vision of where that software was going and where the pricing actually sat as well. What that all culminated in was a written process that they could then demonstrate through to the potential buyers, investors, and then eventual buyers, that they had something real and that it was scalable. That's what I think a lot of businesses, even by not documenting that process, it becomes a hearsay. And also be able to also show through and say, look, we've got all of these revenue forecasts. Have we actually hit these revenue forecasts? But importantly, this is what we did to hit those forecasts. This is what we did wrong to hit those forecasts. These things failed, but we know we've gone down that path and we've come back from that path and we've realigned and gone again. So as a buyer, you're sitting there with a lot of security that you know that by injecting more capital into that business or whatever your plans for that business are, you've got a high probability of reliability of income and growth. And that's really what we try to achieve out of building that revenue engine for an organization. I think the interesting part too is that every business that currently has a revenue engine, it's just a case of, do they know it? And are they starting to utilize it? Do you find the same sort of thing, Daniel?
Yeah, so I haven't personally used that terminology, revenue engine,
right? Yeah.
But I use similar terminology. Either I'll talk about, how clear are they about where they want to go, and how capable are they of actually executing that?
Right.
So
yeah. Right.
I quite like the terminology revenue engine. How would a business owner know if they do have one? And then if they do have one, how would they know if there's opportunity there?
I think firstly is if they're getting any form of income or revenue into their business, they have a form of a revenue engine. So they're doing something, they're taking a series of actions that actually bringing in revenue to their business. So therefore they have one. Now, again, whether they recognize it. And so then it's a case of saying, all right, well, I need to write down and ideally sit on a whiteboard and I love a whiteboard, have a play with whiteboard and go, okay, well, what do I actually do now? And what are the resources that I actually had within my organization? So one of the big things that we're really, really, really strong on is to say, before we go and spend a whole lot of money, let's have a look at what you've actually got here at the moment. And for example, it might be that it's a database that has been lost in your CRM from 3 years ago, but that is actually an asset that's sitting within the business. Now, how you utilize that and the efficiency of doing that is the process that you need to work through. But that's actually a resource as an asset potentially that you're not utilizing, but you don't have to go and pay for. So it's those sort of things that all add to the engine. The engine is ultimately the process, documented down, that's tweaked, changed, measured, and the data that you feed back from it. It can be a really simple thing. It can be a scrap of paper. This is what we do. It can be a very, very sophisticated, machine learned piece of process on the way through and system.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all, especially when it's coming to building the value of the business, making it more sellable, and reducing the risk. It's all about having the systems documented and the processes documented so somebody else can come and pick it up and continue the growth, which I love. Are you able to share any, stats or quantify any great results that you've been able to have?
Yes. I'm just trying to think through this. We've had a lot of good success. So I suppose probably simply it was a smaller organisation and they were growing within a new defined market that was merging. We're able to take them from about 120K revenue. So they were just, they weren't covering costs, they weren't taking wages, they weren't doing anything. But simply by defining down that process, And that involved even working through to their media and how they were doing it, getting themselves to market. We also looked at their pricing. We looked at a whole range of other things. We took them to about 580K within a year.
Wow.
And all they needed to do was simply just understand what they had, and start to do some repeatable processes against that. So they had a good business. They just didn't understand which repeatable processes they needed to do. And they needed to define down who they were a little bit more as a business. And they'll go 1.2 mil this year, and it's a services-based business. So yeah, there's many examples, I suppose, that could be led. One of the things that I think really needs to be always be taken into context when you're looking at building these engines is that every business is actually really unique, and that's not just a throwaway line. If you have two businesses that are identical, and one's owned by a 64-year-old male and one's a 23-year-old lady, and they both have an identical product, simply the way those two owners and their staff operate and think, you're going to end up with two different businesses, and then it's designing your processes against that. So that's the beauty of it. But you've always got to be considering your engine needs to be unique, and it's a little bit like not doing what a lot of organisations say, and the big catch try is we care. If there's 50 companies and they all care, what does it really mean at the end of the day? So yeah, that's some background there.
I love everything about that story, Phil. We should have started the interview with that.
We care.
But tell me, there's a lot of great success here. What is it that you love the most about what you do?
I think it's a little bit like from our discussions. It's really seeing, being able to be part of the business, being part of people who are driving new ideas and new initiatives into the market, and be able to assist people and their businesses, and the flow and effects that go through, and the staff and everything else. So I think it's having variety within our role, and taking that experience that we learned from one customer and be able to look across and say, that and the 20 other experiences I've had in that similar range, here's something we can pinpoint and we can get to quickly for a client. So rather than having to go through a lot of trial and error, like your services, is be able to bring them to a point much quicker, more succinctly, so they can actually achieve those goals, and whatever those goals may be, and they'll be different for every business, as I say. So yeah, no, I think we're probably on a similar page of what we get out of it and what we like to achieve, and the independence, I think, of just being able to work with a whole variety of people.
Yeah, there's definitely something about business owners working with business owners, right? Rather than a employee consultant trying to resonate with the daily life of somebody who has all the skin in the game. Look, pretty much everything we spoke about could be pulled apart a bit further. And the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So for the people who are watching this video that are like, Phil, where do I even start? What advice do you have for them?
I would first go, write down all of the resources you think you've got, and have a look at your revenue engine and start to consider, do I have a revenue engine? What does it look like? And then starting to think, okay, what is it I can do? Do I need some external advice to fast track where I'm going? Do I have a play with it? But it's the realization that you actually have an engine and you actually have resources. Now, what am I going to do with those? How can I start to optimize those within my budget, within my scale, within my ability to deliver the service, and balance all of those things out would be the first place to start. And yeah, just go and have a coffee by yourself or with your team and say, what are the resources we've got, and what do we currently do? I would say 80+% of businesses don't do that exercise at some point. By simply doing it's a realization, and it allows you to start to focus on that revenue outcome.
Yeah, I love the what is it that we actually do, and that same question from different perspectives really opens up a lot of opportunity. Phil, this has been amazing. Where can people either learn more about you, learn more about your services, learn more about revenue engines, or invite you out for coffee?
Always up for a coffee, by the way, and a chat. Love a chat, as you can gather. It just through our website, which is just rainmakersales.com.au, or just Phil Purcell on LinkedIn. Look, I love to open connections, DM me, have a chat. Again, if I can provide a bit of quick advice, let's see if we're compatible for each other. Again, if I can help a business, always happy to do that. So, no, look, really appreciate it. I know you're out there doing some good things for your clients, and I think the more that we can share and collaborate as professionals in this area, and we hopefully add value to our clients ultimately.
Yeah, great work, Phil.
Excellent. Great chat. Look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, Daniel.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.
Cheers.